I need to do this.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome. This is our monthly My Speaker Business community call. And as you know, every month we have an incredible speaker and entrepreneur and guest with us that shares with you practical hints and tips that you can apply for your speaking and your business right away. And you can ask your personal questions to really make your speaking business flourish even further. You can also exchange, it's your time and opportunities to exchange with other professional speakers. And also, if you need help and support on your high priority projects, then here's the space to share, right? And for some of us, it's lunchtime here in Europe. For our American friends, it's breakfast time. And for our Asian friends, it's dinner time. So again, just simply take a break and have fun with us and get inspired. And as we know, we always make it as interactive as we can, so you can ask your questions anytime. And just keep in mind that you mute yourself when you're not speaking. And also keep in mind this is video recorded, but hey, you're a speaker. I know you love the stage and you love to be on a virtual stage. Well, what are we talking about today? Today we talk about the art of building relationships and getting referrals. Because as you know, referrals are the lifeblood of success in almost any profession, especially as speakers and entrepreneurs. And while you depend on your network to give referrals to you, whether you get them is really 100% your own responsibility. Well, let's explore the reasons why many speakers and entrepreneurs are really failing to educate and empower your network to get you these referrals. So correct this, and a better network and great referrals will be the result of it. Well, who is our guest today? And I know he is the referral and the networking master in so many ways. He is an international speaker and he's the founder of M-Spirit Business Connections. He really empowers entrepreneurs, sales representatives, and professionals around the US to become more successful and more active by really helping them build dynamic professional relationships. And he also shares all of his insights in books and on podcasts and many articles he's written. So let me welcome him, Frank Agin. Frank, it's wonderful to have you with us today. Great that you got up early for us.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome to the people who are live. Welcome to the people who are watching the recorded version of this. If you're live, stop me at any time with questions if something doesn't make sense. If you're recorded, you miss out on that wonderful opportunity. Let me just start in, and I'll talk a little bit about myself and who I am and kind of what qualifies me to talk to you. Again, my name is Frank Agin. I am in the United States. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, which is the central part of the United States. We're Eastern time zone. It is early, but that's okay. I started my career as an attorney or a tax consultant. I have a law degree. I have an MBA. I have a CPA. I have more letters after my name than I have in my name. And I was this tax consultant. I worked for this really big firm, and it was a great job. It was great pay. Everything was great about it, except the taxes part. I didn't want to do taxes for the rest of my life. And so after about 6.5 years, I decided to leave and go into private practice. But I tell people that a funny thing happened when I went into private practice. And the funny thing was that nothing happened. I had no idea how to get clients. And that's a struggle that we all have. And in the big firm I started with, it wasn't a struggle because there were people that went out and got the work and brought it in. They just wanted you to come in and do the work 6 days a week, 7 days if you could, come on in and do the work. And that was really kind of the mindset. And it doesn't work that way in what I call the small business world. You've got to get out there and you've got to find the opportunities. And so I struggled. I had really no idea what I was doing. It's a little more complicated for an attorney because you're not allowed to advertise for the most part, and you're not allowed to call people. You're not allowed to cold call people. So that was a challenge, created a challenge for me. Well, I had lunch one day with a friend of mine, and I asked her, I said, what do I need to do to become successful? She had started a firm right out of school and was doing rather well. And she said, you need to get into a tips club or a leads group. Well, I had no idea what she was talking about, but through a couple of introductions, I found myself in a room of this organization that brought together entrepreneurs, sales reps, professionals on a weekly basis to learn about each other and exchange referrals. If you're familiar with BNI, it was very similar to that. This woman who had started it, she was based in Pittsburgh, which is about 3 hours to the east of me, had created something very similar. But at any rate, it immediately made total sense to me that you can lift up your whole world. You can become successful just by helping other people and trusting that they'll help you in return. So I really kind of doubled down on that and really got involved in that particular organization. I was that chapter's first president. I got on a national advisory board for the organization, became the organization's first franchisee, and then in the early 2000s, I bought it out. And that really changed the trajectory of my life. I stopped practicing law, and I just decided I'm really going to get into this networking thing. I'm going to help people. And my whole notion of helping people at the moment was I'm just going to keep putting these groups together and try and make them successful. But what I found along the way is that I really needed to become a student of networking. I need to understand why things worked and why things didn't work, and be able to educate people on various things. And that's led me into writing a number of books. You can see some of the thumbnails behind me. And I've got a couple podcasts out there. I have a podcast I release 2 or 3 times a week. I just recorded episode 403, so I've been doing quite a bit. And then I have a daily podcast, literally every day, 4 a.m. Eastern time. It comes out. It's just a 1-minute little inspiration or insight. It's called Networking RX Minute. So that's essentially my background. And like I said, I'm a student of this. I see lots of people doing really, really well with networking. And when I say networking, I really mean professional relationships. And I see a lot of people struggling. And there are certainly reasons for that. And I try to help people along the way. Sales is everything, right? You look at any company income statement, balance sheet, it all comes back to sales. If you're not selling something, you're going to fail. That's just the way it is. And, this is true in not-for-profits as well. Not-for-profits need money. Money makes the world go around, so you need that money. And so sales is the key to that. Well, the best source of sales is referrals, right? It beats cold calling. It's less expensive. It's less expensive than advertising. And it's a whole lot more reliable than just hoping that the business comes in. It's getting referrals, getting people to send you business. But the reality is this, is while you depend upon others for these referrals, whether you get them or don't get them is 100% your reliability or your responsibility. It's 100%. And I'll see people who will come into my groups and they'll be pointing the fingers at others and wondering why they're not getting referrals. And I tell them the reason you're not getting referrals is not anything that they're doing. It's something you're doing or not doing. And what I find is that it really comes down to 3 things as to why people don't get referrals. And people will call me or people will grab me after a meeting and they'll be upset that they're not happy with their referrals. They're not getting enough or they're not getting any. And I don't know that anybody out there is totally satisfied with the number of referrals they're getting. Even the people who seem to do very well always would like more. But there are people out there who are struggle to get referrals. And it really boils down to 3 things. There are only 3 reasons why you're not getting referrals, and these are them. And whenever I talk to somebody, it always comes down to one of these things. And we're going to go into detail in each of these. But the first is relationship. You lack a relationship with people. And that's kind of the first theme. The second reason you wouldn't get referrals, might not get referrals or might not get the amount of referrals you want, is you've failed to educate people how to recognize opportunities for you. And again, I'm going to go into detail on all of these things. And then the third reason is that you've failed to empower the people in your network to engage others in a conversation that somehow leads back to you. Monique, when I'm done, I'm happy to share my slide deck with you. I'll get you a PDF. So I see people taking notes. you're welcome to take notes, but I'm happy to share all this stuff with you. I'm a poor writer, and so I find I'll miss something if I'm taking notes. So I just want people to feel like they can just take it all in. Where are we? Oops, went ahead. So the first reason why you don't get referrals or don't get the amount of referrals that you want, it's really a lack of relationship. And I see this all the time. Somebody will walk into the room for the first time and they'll be totally befuddled that why don't people give me referrals? And I don't know if how the terminology relates, but financial advisors, attorneys, accountants, realtors, these are all people that just think that while I'm here, I should just get referrals. And it's really not that simple. What you need to do to get referrals is you really need three things, right? You need people to know you, you need people to like you, you need people to trust you. And these are really these are universal. This is nothing I've come up with. This is common sense. People can't refer you if they don't know you. People won't refer you if they don't like you. And I think we all have people in our world that we know and we like, or we know, but we don't necessarily like. And we're not going to help them. We don't go out of our way for people we're indifferent to. We go out of our way for the people that we like. And people around you will go out of their way if they like you. And then the last thing is trust. People need to also trust you. And I always joke about it as a former attorney. I know lots of people that I know and like, but I don't necessarily trust. So it is entirely possible. There are people in this world. There was a guy that I knew. He was a great guy. I knew him. I liked him. But he had a problem in that he kept stealing his dad's stuff and going to sell it. And so he was kind of handyman type, and he would pawn, sell his dad's stuff for money. And it's like, I know this guy, I like this guy. I wouldn't trust him around anybody. I'll have a beer with him. I'll go to a game with him, but I don't trust him to do work for me or for anybody else. So it's entirely possible. What I want to do is I want to share a quick little story here just to kind of illustrate the notion behind this, the notion of relationship. There's a famous anthropologist out there. Her name is Margaret Mead. And she was teaching a class, and one of her students asked, what was the first sign of human civilization? And she thought about it. And everybody was waiting with bated breath, waiting for this answer, postulating in their mind what that answer might be. Was it clay pots? Was it weapons? Was it fire? What was the first sign of human civilization? And her answer was this: a healed femur. The femur is the bone that connects the knee to the hip. Most animals have a femur. Some rely on them more than others. But she went on to explain, she said, in the business, or not in the business world, in the animal world, you don't see animals with healed femurs. When an animal breaks its femur, it's a death sentence. It can't move, it can't hunt, it can't provide for itself. But when we started to find humans with healed femurs, we knew there was something different, because somebody made a decision to stay behind and care for somebody else. And that was really the first sign of human civilization, that people, and mind you, this is a day where you don't have stores and shops right around the corner. You don't have Amazon delivery. You don't have all these, the comforts we have now. It was a hard life, and you had to keep moving, and you had to keep hunting, and you had to keep gathering. And to stop and care for someone, and for a femur to heal without modern medicine takes about 6 weeks. So somebody literally had to stop what they were doing and saying, I'm going to make a commitment to this person, or we're going to make a commitment to this person to heal them up. And it was that compassion that really separated us. And I wasn't there, but it was likely that compassion that changed everything for the human existence, because we'll use the picture. If you decided to leave this particular individual, you went from 4 people to 3. That's a, it's a 25% reduction in your workforce, if you will. And your ability to survive, your ability to hunt was greatly diminished. So when I talk about relationship, I'm talking about these things. I'm talking about caring for other people and knowing that you have somebody's back and they have yours. And that's really what relationships are all about. And the key thing to this point is that this DNA is in all of us. This caring DNA is in all of us. And it's really the building block. And if you want people to give you referrals, you need to care about other people. I need to kind of get out of the way here a little bit. But what you need to do to build relationships is you kind of need to ask yourself, what matters to you? I know I'm out of focus at this point, just I moved, because if it matters to you, it matters to others. So you have to stop and you have to look and think about what are the things that matter to you? Who are the types of people you want to associate with? You want people who are energetic, authentic, optimistic, determined, thoughtful, encouraging. These are all the people you want to have in your life. Generous, grateful, trusting, forgiving, reliable. Honesty is important. All those things matter. And if those things matter to you, they matter to others. And you would choose to, let's take optimism, for example. You don't want to have somebody in your life who's pessimistic. We all know those people, possibly family, possibly friends, those people that you know and like and don't necessarily trust, but they're pessimistic. You don't really want to spend time with them. They're draining. So you shouldn't be that person either. You know the types of people you like to have in your world. What you need to do, the first step in getting referrals, is you need to build relationships by becoming the person you want to associate with. And it's easier said than done. I get it, but you need to stop and really have an honest conversation with yourself. But what are the things I really want in my life? The types of people I want in my life. You want that person is totally reliable. I had a conversation with my daughter over the weekend. She's out in the working world, and she has a job working for a professional women's soccer team, but she also does side things. And she has a client that is consistently late to their Zoom calls. She has a client that is consistently just not showing. And she's just kind of decided, I don't want this person in my world. The money is not worth it. But I told her, I said, you need to become what you want. You have to become what you want. And you have to look at this person and say, you know what? Everybody's either an example of what I should be or shouldn't be. And here's a perfect example of somebody that you shouldn't be. So try to become the person you want to associate with. Stop and look at the people who are around you and say, yeah, I love that quality about them. I need to have that quality. I need to be that person. Because the same reason why you want people in your world will be the reason why people want you in theirs. So that's the first step to building kind of a referral machine, if you will, is having relationships. And this takes time. It's going to take more time depending upon certainly what you're selling, what level you're selling at. For some people, it's simple. I go to a florist and I'll order flowers. I really don't need to have a high level of know, like, and trust. But if I'm working with a financial advisor or somebody selling my house, I need to have that high level of know, like, and trust. And so it's just, it's going to take a different amount of time. There's no set formula. You really kind of need to be patient with it and sort of keep after it. But in time, if you're that person that you want to associate with, people are going to want to associate with you, and you'll have that. But it's entirely possible to have a relationship with somebody, have a good relationship with somebody and not get referrals. So it kind of brings us to the next the next piece of it, and it's recognition. Educating people on how to recognize opportunities for you. Early on in my career as an entrepreneur, as an attorney, I was in this group, and there was a woman who joined the group the very same week I did. Her name is Gina. This was 1995. We're 25 years later. Gina and I are still friends. Her kids were all born about the same time my kids were born. I call her my sister. She's kind of my sister. We fight a lot too, but it always kind of works out. Just it's a great long-term relationship. But I knew Gina. I liked Gina. I trusted Gina. Gina's just one of those people that she's just very energetic. She just lights up the room. She's totally reliable. If she says she's going to do something, she'll do it. She was always, I remember when I came back to the meeting after my first son being born, she was waiting there and she had a baby carriage for us. And she's just a giving person. She's just a great person. I knew her, I liked her, I trusted her. We had a relationship, but I never gave her any referrals. Why? Because I wasn't able to recognize opportunities for her. She was a telecommunications consultant. She talked about all sorts of things I didn't understand. And as a consequence, I didn't give her referrals. Until at one point I needed phone service. I was moving out of my home office into what I'll call a big boy office. And I went in and I plugged this is all pre-cell phone, right? This is 1996. It's pre-cell phone. I went to go plug my phone into the wall at my new office and there was nothing. I don't know how it works in other parts of the world, but in the United States, you could turn on the faucet and you'll get water. But when you plug the phone into the wall, you're not going to get dial tone unless you've already arranged for the service. So I literally had to get in the car, drive all the way home and call her on the landline. Because again, pre-cell phone, and just say, hey, Gina, here's my situation. Is this something you do? And she said, absolutely. That's exactly what I do, or a part of what I do. And she helped me get service. And through that, I was able to recognize opportunities for her. This is the big thing for 95% of the people I encounter. It's easier, I should say, to get people to have a relationship with us, to get them to know, like, and trust us. That's relatively easy. For me as an attorney in the group I was in, it was easy for people to get to know, like, and trust me. I tried to be genuine. I stepped up and I was president of the group. I tried to help other people, introduce other people. People knew me, they liked me, and they trusted me. They weren't really able to understand what it is I was looking for. And there are some pitfalls to this, but this is the big thing that I see. People are good at establishing relationships, but they fall down with respect to recognition. So I'm going to go through a series of examples to try and highlight what I'm talking about here. So what somebody might say is, wow, what a great person. That's Patrick. Totally love him. He's awesome. But I have no idea what he does. And I'm telling you, this is a problem. And we all assume that people just know what we do. In the group I was in early on, I was just kind of befuddled. It's like, wow, everybody should know what an attorney does, don't they? But they didn't. And as much as I was likable and people wanted to help me, I didn't educate them on the things that they needed to know to be able to spot opportunities for me. And this could certainly be the problem for you as well. You've got relationships out there, and there's all sorts of, tricks, or I don't say tricks, strategies for developing relationships. Get out in your community, volunteer in your community, get to know people, find ways to help other people. They will not be able to do anything but know you, like you, and trust you. It will happen. But that is not enough. You could have somebody sitting right beside your best client and they just not know it. So a lot of people say, oh, simple. Anybody who needs a professional speaker, or everyone who, needs a keynote. I I hear this all the time. Well, I'm a chiropractor. Anybody with a back, I can help anybody with the back. Well, I'm an attorney. I can help anybody who needs legal help. I'm an accountant, anybody who needs their money accounted for. Anyone translated equals no one. And it's just the way the human brain works. The woman I was referring to, my friend Gina, her analogy was this. She would always say, if you tell me you're looking to buy a used car, I will drive all around town and I won't think of you because there's used cars everywhere. In the United States, people will take cars that they're trying to sell, they'll put a for sale sign on them and park them in a shopping mall or park them in a grocery store parking lot. Just kind of a way of generating interest in their used car. And you drive by them all the time and you don't think about the person. But if you say, listen, I'm looking for a pink, whatever car, VW Bug, Jeep, whatever car it might be, then when I see that pink car, I'll think of you. When I think of that make and model, I'll think of you. So the way the human brain works is we need to try and be specific. You can't just say anyone or everybody, because the brain does not have the ability to latch on to the anyone or everyone concept. And a simple test for this is go to somebody and just say, tell me everything you know. And they will fumble with that because there's no frame of reference to get started. But if I go to Roger and I say, okay, Roger, tell me what you know about the British Premier League. Now, it might be nothing. He might not be a football or a soccer fan, but at least he has a frame of reference to say no, or he might have a big answer on that. It just depends. But when you start being very general, you're going to lose people. So that's the first thing. So then the person goes on and they explain, oh, let me do better. Basically, blah, 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 blah. And they start to talk. And they generally talk about things in a manner that they understand it, and not in a manner that somebody else understands it. And that becomes a problem. The thought bubble there is, oh boy, I'm still clueless. They talk and they talk. Well, it makes perfect sense to me. It must make perfect sense to them. And the reality is that's not necessarily true. And that's true for a lot of reasons. I joke about it in the United States, certainly in the Midwestern part of the United States. I say the wonderful thing about Midwesterners in the United States, and it's probably true of people worldwide, but I joke about people in the Midwest because this is where I am and where I talk to most people. But I say the wonderful thing about people in the Midwest is that they're really, really nice. And the horrible thing about people in the Midwest is they're really, really nice. And when I mean it's a horrible thing is they will sit there and they'll hear somebody say, oh, let me do better, basically, blah, 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 blah. And they'll shake their head and smile as if they understand and walk away and still have no clue as to how to give you referrals. So you might be telling somebody basically blah, 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 and thinking, okay, they got it. They smiled and shook their head. Maybe not. Maybe not. One of the things I tell people, if you really want to be a good person in this world and you hear somebody do the basically blah, 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 stop and ask them questions. Simply say, I don't mean to be rude, but please explain. I really want to help you. I know you. I like you. I trust you. I really want to do some things for you. Please stop and explain. Continuing on. And so they better clarify. And they insert all sorts of big words, industry terms, and jargon. And people are left going, oh, okay, wow, they're really smart. I have no idea what they're talking about. Still clueless as to what they're all about. And we are prone to use jargon in our lives. In the United States, I'll pick on realtors. Realtors go back to their offices and they talk English. 24 hours a day or however long they're in the office, they talk English, but they have all this jargon that they use because There are forms that have acronyms to them. There's a form out there called the HUD. And HUD stands for Housing and Urban Development. Now, most people don't know that, but that means something to them. It's a particular form. Mortgage lenders will throw around numbers. In the United States, we have a loan called a 203K loan. And someone will say, well, I do 203K loans. Well, if you don't know what a 203K loan is, and that's when you're rehabbing a house, getting money to fix up a house, if you don't know what a 203K loan is, you're not going to be able to refer that person. I was guilty of this myself as an attorney. I would tell people, and I would talk in big terms. I would throw out legal terms, thinking, wow, I sound smart. They're really going to want to refer me. And again, what are they doing? They're smiling and shaking their heads. And I think, okay, I'm connecting. No, they are clueless as to what it is that I do. So you need to kind of get the jargon, get the industry terms out of what you're talking about. You need to kind of dumb it down. And it may not be as big of an issue in your world, but what I encourage you to do with respect to really all of these slides is to stop and take a hard look at what you're saying. Take a hard look at your messaging, how you're coming across, how you're emailing people, how you're getting information out, how your brochure might look, how you're asking for things, and really ask that hard question. Does this make sense? Don't ask your mom if something makes sense, because your mom will say yes, she thinks you're the greatest. And you are probably the greatest, but she's not going to give you the answer you need. I have a wonderful person in my life. It's my wife. I call my wife my tough Russian judge, because she'll tell it to me straight. Every book I've ever written, she's proofed it, and she'll tell me when things don't make sense. Now, you might not have a spouse in your life that you can turn to, but you need to find that person in your life. And I have 3 or 4 of these people who love to wield a red pen. You give them something to read, and they'll wield a red pen. So I'll write things out. I'll say, what do you think? And they'll say, oh, no. This doesn't, you really need this word as opposed to this word. Well, to me, it makes perfect sense. I thought I've totally landed on the perfect statement, but they're far enough away from it and comfortable enough to give me that advice. So that's something that you really need to try and find in your world, is that person who can be totally honest with you. So you might say then, okay, it's really simple. I'm a professional speaker. Okay, I get what they do, but when do they do it? And this is a big problem for lots of people, is they talk about what they do, but they don't talk about when they do it. And the when is so much more important than the what. A realtor comes to me and says, well, I help people buy and sell houses. An attorney might say to me, well, I help people who have legal problems. Those are whats. It's what you do. It's not when you do it. And for a realtor, what a realtor needs to be saying, as an example, as opposed to I'm a realtor, I help people buy and sell houses, which just totally begs the question. What a realtor needs to be saying is, if you know that young couple that's living in an apartment and they just had a baby, they probably want a house. Or that couple that just married off their last son or daughter, and everybody's moved out of that big 2,000 square foot house, they may want to downsize. That's a when. So what you need to ask yourself as you're putting together your messaging, and that's really all this is what are the whens? When do I do the things that I do? When do I speak? Somebody tells me they're a professional speaker. I kind of get it. I get what they do, but I don't necessarily know the whens. And I think there's a whole lot of whens that are out there. So somebody might elaborate on this, and they might do something like this. When? Okay, let me tell you. And then they go through this litany of things. 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 23 and a half. They just start firing things out and start firing things out and start firing things out. And there are a lot of people who are guilty of this. When they have an opportunity to talk about themselves, they talk about everything because they don't want to miss anything. But the great irony is in not missing anything, they really miss everything. Because the way the human brain works is the second you say one, right, or whatever one represents, I do keynote addresses. What the human mind will do is the human mind will start going through what I'll call a mental Rolodex. It'll go through all the people and all the situations they're aware of that relate to one. And you want them to do that. But the second you say two, it starts all over on the Rolodex. And when you get to three, it stops working on one and two and starts working on three. Our minds are powerful things, but it only really works on one thing at a time. And it might be lightning fast, but you're somewhat fast and kind of going through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and just firing out all sorts of stuff. And so what ends up happening is the person listening will kind of catch one, maybe two, and then maybe the thing towards the end. It'll miss everything in the middle. That's just how the human mind works. And there's all sorts of studies out there where they'll give people a list of things to remember, and there might be 15 items on the list, and they'll do really, really well on the first three and the last three. And all the things in the middle, the 9 in the middle, they can't even think of. So when you start with your messaging, you need to be somewhat specific about it. The reality is if you're going to have a relationship with somebody, if it's a one-off thing, it doesn't matter anyways, because you'll never have enough of a relationship for them to refer you. But if it's going to be an ongoing relationship, then you know that there's nothing wrong with talking about one, or whatever that might be, keynote addresses in one context and coming back in another. With my organization, it's weekly meetings. I tell these people, you're going to be here next Tuesday morning. So don't be afraid of saying one thing this morning and then something another time. Likewise, when you have ongoing relationships with people, don't be afraid of kind of dripping out information at them. Hey, I want to tell you about this, and then come back and then tell them about that. And then sometimes people will zero on that single item, right? And it's the big thing. I have one chance, I'm going to talk about the big thing. And people kind of get this perception of them. So years ago, when I was just in a chapter of my organization, there was a guy who was in our group. His name was Bob, but his name is Bob. He's still alive, still doing well. And Bob came into the group, and this was back in the 90s. This was back in the time when you could make money selling computers. Anymore, they give computers away, not give them away, but they pretty much sell them at cost. Nobody's really making money selling computers, at least not like they were in the early days. And Bob came into our, what we call chapter, and he gave a message. He shared a message. He said, a good referral for me is if you know somebody in a school system that is looking to purchase 100 or more computers, let me know. And he went on to elaborate. At that time, the governor of our state had earmarked $1 billion, 1 and 9 zeros, to get computers into school systems. And they were pretty much making sure that every kid in the state had access to computers. So every week, Bob would come in and he would talk about this program. And, it's free money, and it's a win for the school, and it's a win for me. If somebody needs 100 computers, great. Well, after a year, he stood up in the chapter and he said, I'm leaving. I didn't get any referrals. And we're all kind of sad, like we had failed him. And somebody said, Bob, we're sorry to see you go. You were, basically saying we knew you, we liked you, we trusted you. You came to all the socials, you gave referrals, you did all the things he needed to do for us to help him. But the person went on to say, I would have loved to have used you. I just don't know anybody who needs 100 computers. I bought one last year, and somebody else said, well, my company, but we bought 2. We just don't know anybody who needs 100. And Bob's jaw drops. And Bob goes, I make a lot of money selling one computer at a time. I make a lot of money just selling monitors. I make money selling keyboards. And people were like, Bob, you never told us that. The only message you ever gave us was this 100 computer message. And you branded yourself as this 100 computer guy. And just as the comment in here is, 2019 giant auditorium, hundreds of professionals, big fee. When you share that, there's nothing wrong with that. That's certainly what you want to do, and it may have been something that you did do. But if you fixate on that, you have to remember that's the brand that other people perceive in you. And these things might not happen all the time. And what I like to tell people is, certainly I call it the ABCs of asking for referrals, right? Certainly talk about the A referral, right? Right hand, A referral. The B referral is kind of what you typically see. And then the C referral is the thing that you are okay doing, but you're not excited about. And the example I always use from practicing law is I never was excited doing somebody's simple will, doing their estate planning. It's a very personal thing. You can never charge enough money to do the service. And I just never was excited about it, but I did it. And the reason I did it is because all that little bit of money added up, and the little things led to the big things. Nobody's going to come to you and say, hey, there's a giant auditorium, we need you to speak, and we have a big fee for you. What's likely going to happen is they're going to come to you and say, hey, we need somebody to do a 45-minute keynote. Or we have breakout rooms and we'd like you to be part of that. And that's how things start. They start little and then they grow big. So don't fixate, okay, I got one opportunity. Don't fixate on the big thing. Kind of get yourself going. And so here's a great example of, what I would encourage you to go with. Last week, I gave a 30-minute program to kick off a weekend industry conference, inspiring the audience of managers to be blah, 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 blah. Then I also did an hour-long breakout on blah, 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 blah. I have a variety of other programs, but that gives you a sense to a couple, right? That's what I call a 30-second story. Just giving them 30 seconds about something about you that you can share. This sticks in their head. And you probably have, I'm trying to move out of the way here so you can see it all. And you probably have lots of examples that you can use to empower, educate the people around you to recognize opportunities. So all of a sudden, then when they're out there listening to people and talking to people, and you might want to fill in the blank as to what the industry conference is. There's all sorts of industries out there. There's tech industries. There are people out there who work on sewer systems. There are people out there that run bus lines. There's all sorts of industries and trade programs out there. And you might know that, but the average person might not know that. So what you want to do is you want to try and put together little 30-second stories that kind of give people an idea of the types of things that you do. You don't need to spit up on them with all the different variations of it. You're just kind of trickling out information. You can't take a pitcher of beer and pour it into a shot glass. The shot glass will be full, but most of it's wasted. So you just need to trickle information out to people as you talk to them. Let them know. And that's the beautiful thing about Facebook is it allows you to push things out. Hey, just got done doing this 30-minute program to kick off this conference. That's all you need to say. Hey, it was wonderful. I want to thank Monique for the introduction, and then you can come back a week later with something else. Now, here's the beautiful thing about these little 30-second stories. One, you've solved all the problems, right? You've solved all the problems of the other things of being too general, being too specific, being too highbrow, avoiding jargon, all that stuff. But there's nothing that says that you have to stick to the things that you do. I had a conversation with a woman yesterday. I was kind of helping her with her messaging, and she's getting brand new into her coaching program, only has a few clients. And she was very apologetic about it. She's like, oh, I only have a couple clients. I don't have a lot of stories. And my response to her was, the only person who knows that you only have a couple clients is you and now me. And I don't want you to ever say it again because no one needs to know. You can make up these 30-second little stories. Nobody's going to audit you. Okay, Patrick, let's sit down. Let's see who you really did this with. Nobody's going to audit. They're going to take it at face value. And so in your mind, as you're putting these things together, think about the types of things that you would like to be doing and make those 30-second stories. I don't like the term fake it till you make it. But essentially what you're doing is you're projecting what you want your business to be about. But put together a series of these. I'm not talking about hundreds, but don't stop at 2. Have a number of them. When I finally figured things out for my life as an attorney, I actually had 5 or 6 of these things that I could go into my chapter, and 5 or 6 is probably not enough looking back, but I could stand up and I could give them a sense as to this is what I'm looking for. You know me, you like me, you trust me. If you know of a business, I was a business attorney. If you know of a business that is, needing a lease reviewed, a commercial lease, that would be for me. And I would put it in terms of a story. This last week I was working with a client and they are leasing some office space. And they came to me and they sat down and they had a lease that was 1 inch thick and had all sorts of words that nobody understood, but me and the person who wrote it. And I sat down, and in a few hours, I was able to go through the lease with them, and they understood everything that they were signing, and we were able to get certain things out of the lease. And people sitting around the room would be like, "Oh, you do that?" Yes, that's one of the things I do. So you need to kind of have these 30-second stories to help people get a great sense. So the second thing, step 1, is you need to build a relationship. And then the second step is you need to educate others on how to recognize opportunities for you. And I realize these are all easier said than done. Nothing's simple in this world, right? It's not all down to 6 winning numbers in the lottery. You've got to do some work. The one point I want to make with respect to this is that you need to conform your explanation to their ability to understand. I hear it all the time. People say, well, they're stupid. They're not hearing what I'm saying. They're not stupid. They just don't know Latin. They just don't know your jargon. It's up to you. It's your responsibility to get referrals. It's your responsibility to not have them up their ability to understand. You need to bring it down to them. You need to come as low as you need to come with your explanation so they can understand. That is your responsibility. All right, moving on. The last piece. People know us, they like us, they trust us. So we've got that relationship. We've done a great job of getting them to recognize opportunities for us. We've got all these little 30-second stories we can kind of deploy on Facebook in our conversations to get people thinking about us and get us on their radar so they know what's going on. The next thing we need to do is we need to get them to engage with others. So here's the thought bubble. What a great person. That Patrick, wow, he's great. I've always thought he's great, but I better know how to spot or listen for opportunities for him. But when I see or hear one, I don't know what to say. And that's the third piece that people struggle with, is they do a great job educating people on who they are. They do a great job they do a great job building relationships. They do a great job with the recognition. But you have to remember, recognition just is housed in their head. So they might see something and not know what to say. And so you need to empower them with language that can help them. And this might not be as critical for you, but there are certain industries out there where this is critical. For example, life insurance. I know a lot of life insurance people, lovable people, great people, do a great job of explaining opportunities for life insurance. One of those is, anytime you go to somebody and say you need to have life insurance, that's a tough conversation. So we need some help there. Years ago, when I was working with one of my groups, and there was a guy in the group, his name was Jerry. Jerry was a great guy, funny, very insightful. He was a business psychologist, if you will. Everyone liked to joke with him because, He was a psychologist, and he did a great job of educating us all what to look for out there to refer him. And I was still practicing law at the time, and I had a client, and she had a security business, an armed guard security business. She would send big burly men out to stand at the bank or patrol a warehouse or whatever. And she was a great client and had big aspirations for growing this business. But we would be doing things to set things in motion, and then they would all fall apart like a house of cards. And I could never understand it. And we would get things built up, and we just need to do this, this, and this, and this, you'll be going big time. And it would all fall down. And I could never figure it out. And then one day I was visiting her at the office, and I realized that her ex-husband was still a part of the business. He was not an owner, but he was still an employee. And he walked around the office with a gun at his side, and which was very intimidating. Certainly for me, it was certainly for her. I don't know what their relationship was. I was probably very emotionally abusive. And somehow or another, he still had a place in her life, had still had a place in her head. And I knew, based on talking to Jerry, that she needed Jerry's help. That's a hard conversation to have with somebody. It's a very hard conversation to have with somebody. And I didn't know how to approach her about it. I knew Jerry. I liked Jerry. I trusted Jerry. I recognized opportunities for him. I failed. I was failing. I was not empowered to have this conversation with her. So I sat down with Jerry and I said, you know, attorneys in the United States, we're not supposed to divulge anything about our clients. And I didn't. I did it on a no-name basis. I said, I've got this client. Here's the situation. What do I say to her? I need to get her to you because she could really use your help, but I don't know what to say. So he kind of coached me through it, and I went and I sat down with her and I had the hard conversation. You know, it was teary-eyed. She's like, you know, she right away, yeah, you're right. I know. He's, you know, this guy latched onto me. I just don't know how to get rid of him. And I just said, there's somebody I want you to meet. And so she engaged Jerry, his services. I don't know anything that happened there. That's between them. But I know that within 6 months, her ex-husband became an ex-employee, and the business just rolled forward like it never had before. So when I talk about, hey, we need to have relationships with people, and we need to have, using the wrong hands here, everything's backwards. We need to have relationships with people. We need to educate them on how to recognize things. And then the third thing is we need to get them comfortable talking to others about us. It may not be so hard in your world, but it's still something to think about. But here's an example. Well, when you see or hear this, tell them all about me, i.e. I'm great, competitive price, highly recommended, I'm the one, blah, 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 blah. Nobody wants to be in that situation. When people do that to me, it's like, man, I'm their sales rep all of a sudden. I'm selling for these people. You know, you can't expect somebody to take you on as, you know, and do all the work for you. This is more what I recommend here. Well, when you see or hear something, when you hear this or when you see this or hear that, say something like, I couldn't help but hear that you've got this event next year. Well, if you need a professional program, there's someone I'd like to introduce you to. They're not selling you, they're just making introductions, right? That's what you want. And somebody can say, okay, I can do that. I can introduce people. That's not a big deal. Or here's another one. When you see this or hear that, ask something like, have you ever considered a professional to deliver a keynote for your kickoff? If they say yes, there's someone you might enjoy meeting and considering. I can introduce you. It's up to you to sell yourself, right? It's up to you to have the materials, to have the short little videos that kind of profiles what you do. It's not up to the person referring you. They're just making the introduction. That's all you really need from them. When you see this or hear that, ask something like, do you have training programs that rely on outside professionals? If the answer is yes, I'm aware of someone you should consider. can I introduce you? Again, you're looking for the introductions. What you need to do in this third step, again, the first step is develop the relationship. Wrong hand. Develop the relationship, right? Oh, going the wrong way here. Sorry. Develop the relationship, educate them on how to recognize opportunities. And the third thing is empower them to softly bring you into the conversation, gently nudging other people. Nobody likes to be pushed. Nobody likes to be sold. They just want that introduction. And that's all you need, right? You just need that introduction. They may not hire you this year. It might be next year. They might refer you off to somebody else, but you want to get that introduction. You want to have that opportunity to talk to somebody. Questions?
Wow, Frank, that was quite a shower.
Okay.
Of suggestions and do's and don't do's. It's been amazing. So, thank you for, first of all, from my side, thank you for, the introduction. I know you've done this for many, many years, and you've been, you have a lot of experience. So I'd like to open the floor to everyone that's here with us, like Danya, Patrick, Roger, Sandra, and everyone else. Just to give you the opportunity. Is there any questions you have for Frank right here, right now?
Danya?
Oh, hello, Frank. Thank you for this wonderful insight in getting referrals. I struggle a little bit with this relationships with people because there are so many people out there, and I don't know, what do you recommend? Is it better you go in depth with a few people, like 10, or should I go broader and what do you recommend? Because there are so many people out there who can give referrals.
Yeah, I think the answer to your question is yes, both those. We can only have a deep relationship with everyone, or we can't have a deep relationship with everyone. And I understand that. But I think in this day and age, it's certainly possible to keep people on your radar. I mean, there's all sorts. We have spouses and we have family, right? And we have close friends, and that's kind of our inner circle. And then there's kind of a circle that's outside of that, of people that we still have relationships with. And there's an anthropologist out there. Well, he's a a primate behavioralist named Robin Dunbar. Roger is from the UK. And what he's determined based on looking at primate brains is that the optimal number for us to really have interaction with is 150. But that doesn't mean you're limited to 150 people. The 150 is your family and kind of that outer circle. But beyond that, there's nothing wrong with having, I've got a database of maybe 3,000 people. Now, do I know all those people? I do. I'm comfortable emailing all those people and just staying in contact with them. And I do that. I'll send, I just drip information out, and it's not always about me. For example, somebody sent me a video series that's totally free, and it's kind of a way of using email better, which I know sounds really crazy, but it's very insightful. And I've been routinely sending this out to people. Hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. I stumbled on this video series. I thought that you could really benefit from this. And that's just my way of getting information out and staying on their radar.
So you have a newsletter?
No, I don't I don't really use a newsletter. They're all emails, but they're not all individually done necessarily. I mean, I might write an email and then tweak it for everybody, but I'll reach out to people. Once Danya, once you're on somebody's radar, once they know, hey, you deliver keynotes, that's there. You just need to kind of just stay in contact with them. But it needs to be, I know it's hard, but it just needs to be something that you need to keep up on. It's just, continually circle back with people.
Mm-hmm. I thought about, I know what you're saying. So sending them emails so they get in touch with you always. And I thought about, there are some great networkers out there who really know many of people. And if I like this kind of networker, I think this is a good person to stay in touch with this person more in depth. What do you think about this?
No, I definitely think, I mean, there are people, you know, like Monique referenced Deva Praya. She's in India. I don't know if you have a chance to meet her. You know, she's just somebody that she's one of my COVID buddies, right? We've met through COVID, this whole Zoom thing, Monique's one as well. And we just have kind of developed this relationship. We may never ever meet, but we've developed this relationship, and it's, you know, it's important that we kind of stay on one another's radar. But if you remember back to one of the earlier slides, I showed that picture and talked about when they knew that humans would be civilized. It's when they found out that how much we cared about one another. We were willing to sacrifice everything to care about other people, and other animals don't necessarily do that. So I want you to think about that and think about your network, and in trying to keep up with people, ask yourself this: what can I do for other people?
Mm-hmm. How can I help?
Yeah, if you can help them, most of my referrals come from me helping other people. And I'm not being manipulative, I'm not being calculating about it. But when I help people, when I introduce them to somebody else, you know, you're meeting people here today, get to know them, do a Zoom call, find out about them. There's people you can introduce them to. When you do it, they can't help but want to help you in return. We are hardwired for this reciprocation. And that's really the first step of building that relationship, is just finding ways that you can help other people. And that, with Deva Praya, that's, kind of what I have done, is just, hey, here's somebody you need to know. She's got a Facebook group. I know in her heart of hearts, she wants to build this Facebook group. Okay. I know people who could really benefit from this and really benefit from knowing her. It's a win-win. It's cost me nothing but a little bit of time. And as a result, when she runs across people like Monique, she's like, hey, you need to meet this Frank guy. So I think that's, just, find ways you can help people. And the interesting thing is things will come back to you when you least expect it. I got a referral this year, a great referral from one of my competitors. I don't know why he's referring me, Well, I do. I talk to him. He says, I like you. I like what you're about. I want to help you. Wow. It works, but I never would have expected it. I got a referral to somebody in Chicago from somebody I hadn't talked to in 15 years. It just, you just have to get out there and get involved in the community, however you define that community. Monique's got a worldwide community, so that's her community. If yours is more localized, then it's more localized.
Okay, thank you, Frank.
Yep, Patrick.
Frank, this was worth waking up at 5 o'clock. I can tell you that.
I hope so.
I can easily walk into any room and I know everybody there for the last 10 years. But I haven't been able to effectively convert that into going beyond the personal, because for one reason, I am not a fan of this question that comes up quickly. Hey, what do you do? But the way you presented it about the relationship and what people know about you and the engagement, that was just so eye-opening. How can I effectively move from the being stuck in that personal and flip it to the professional side, where you start having these kind of conversations?
Yeah, I think we all struggle with what do you do? And sitting here, Patrick, I don't have a quick and easy answer for you. I struggle with it. There are people out there, might be something Monique helps with, I don't know, but there are people who are out there who can help with messaging. I've had people who've helped me with my messaging. And I don't know that there's, I think one of the things that you can do is, again, get back to what I talk about, the 30-second story. So somebody comes to you and says, hey, what is it that you do? Well, let me just tell you a quick little example. A couple of weeks ago, I gave this keynote address to this organization. Last month, I, did a Zoom training you know, and then you're starting to give them ideas as opposed to having to come up with this cute 30-second commercial that encompasses everything. Just give them a quick example. And that's one or two examples of things that I do, you know, and then just let it go from there. I hope that's helpful.
You know, you can also, I mean, sometimes, and sometimes I'm a little bit too direct in this way. Sometimes people say, but you know, sometimes even with friends, Patrick, you can say, hey, I'm doing this right now and my heart is beating for this, or I'm embarking on this. So I'm looking for people that, like what Frank said, right? So, you know, it's perfect if you say, you know, a lot of people you've known for 10 years, perfect. That means you've built a really trusting relationship. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been staying in touch with each other, right? So just tell them and say, hey, this is what I'm doing now, and I'm looking for people that. Who in your network do you know?
Well, and yeah, the point I would want to add on to that is so often people get stuck trying to sell to the ultimate person, right? I want the person who's going to hire me. And think about it in these terms. Here's, I gotta get on screen here. There we go. Here's, you're at point A and here's point B. And everybody's that's the shortest distance between 2 points. You know, hey, I want this person, the person who's got a check with my name on it. My advice for people like you, people here, is don't focus so much on point A, going from point A to point B. Go to point C. Who does business with point B? Because you might have to go from point A to C to D to E to F to G, and G happened to be the college roommate of B. And you know, graphically, it works so much better. But you know, the types of people you want to meet doing what you do are all the people that are surrounding these particular events. You know, you would just like to meet somebody who's in the trade association, and they can kind of work you to the, you know, to the people who need to make the decision.
Yes. Okay, great. Time is almost up, but Sandra, you're raising your hand. Do we have time for one more question, Frank, or do you need to run?
No, it's 7 a.m. here. I got to take a nap.
Perfect.
No, go ahead.
Okay, Sandra, let's, you know, room for one more question, and then I would suggest we round up. Sounds good?
Yeah, sure. I was feeling so related to what you say with the example of the friend that didn't know how to express that she didn't have enough experience, because actually I'm reinventing myself. After 30 years in diplomacy, I'm just turning into a consultant and speaker. So I have no experience, but just a few examples that I could give. But what do you suggest?
Well, first, I will challenge the whole notion that you have no experience, because if you spent 30 years in diplomacy, you are way ahead of all of us. And man, kudos to you, and thanks for all you've done. But you know, as far as coming up with examples, and this is a lesson for everybody. There's nothing wrong with networking with, well, call our competitors or other coaches or other speakers. You know, the conversation I had with the woman yesterday, the coach, I told her, I said, using the term coach is like using the term ice cream. There are lots of flavors of ice cream. Well, there are lots of flavors of coaches out there. You know, the type of stuff that Monique does is it rhymes. Monique is unique. You know, and so she's kind of got a niche, and there are people, you know, somebody who is recovering from a life tragedy, that's not necessarily her space. The woman I was talking to yesterday, she was recovered from a stroke at the age of 34, and helping people through life's tragedy was her thing. What Monique does is not that, you know, is not that, and what she does is not Monique. So I would reach out to other people who, you know, do the kinds of things that you do, but maybe in a different space. But even with respect to the people, with respect to yourself, stop, take a quiet moment, glass of wine, you know, a cup of coffee, whatever, and just think through in your mind the types of things and situations you'd like to be involved in. And get little note cards, little sheets of paper, and write individual ones of those out, and those become your 30-second stories then. The fact that you haven't done them, nobody needs to know that. You're not putting a man on the moon. You're not coming up with something to put a man on the moon. You're just trying to find a client. So.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you all for your great questions. And I hope you all picked up some hints and tips and turn them into concrete action in the next couple of days to really, collect more referrals and share with us, what's coming out and what questions come up, and we cheer you on and support you along the way, Frank, right?
Yep. My email is going the wrong way here. My email's on the screen. If people, I'll get you this deck, Monique, and you can share it out and put it wherever. So
perfect. Yeah, we will share it in our communities. People very much appreciate it. And as this recording will be in our Hall of Fame, of course, we'll add the link to the slides as well. Perfect. Thank you so much for being generous. Thank you, Frank, for getting up early.
Thank you.
What I call commitment to building relationships. That's what I call commitment to, helping people to recognize who you are and what you do. And you've just been a perfect example with this session today.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. And thank you all for being with us today. Danya and Louisa and Patrick and Eric was here earlier, and Roger and, and Sandra and everyone else. So I hope you have some hints and tips. So again, don't just go out of the session inspired. Take 1 or 2 or 3 things that you picked up today and turn it into action right away. Okay. So thank you, Frank, for being with us. And next month again, we have another My Speaker Business community call. So we look forward to seeing you there. And Frank is part of our Heart Power Global Nation, so you can also connect with him and definitely take the opportunity to learn more and to, hey, definitely add Frank to your network. You never know where that relationship leads to. Okay. So thank you all for being on with us. Thank you, Frank, and have an amazing day and week ahead, and we'll be in touch. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Frank. Thank you.
Bye.